Hello, I'm Shannon Farrell with the OSU Department of Agricultural Economics, and today we're going to be talking about managing pesticides in Oklahoma agriculture as part of our Environmental Regulatory Compliance for Agriculture project. Now, this presentation is going to be fairly short, but there are a lot of things that we could talk about with pesticide safety. We're really going to talk about just the regulatory requirements under FIFRA. But if you'd like a lot more information, there's a ton of resources available for you through the OSU Pesticide Safety Education Program. And to access those resources, all you have to do is go to our website, pested.okstate.edu. A lot of resources, a lot of information if you'd like to get your certification to be a pesticide applicator. All that information is available for you right there. Pesticides and pesticide applications are regulated under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, also called FIFRA. And what FIFRA has is basically two big requirements. Number one, all pesticides that are going to be sold or used in the United States have to be evaluated by EPA for their potential environmental impacts, their efficacy in dealing with what they're supposed to deal with, and to help us understand the potential impacts both to human health, animal health, plant health, and the environment to their active ingredients. Once those have all been analyzed and found to be within the acceptable tolerances, the pesticide is registered by EPA. Part of that registration process is that EPA approves the labeling of the pesticide. And the labeling is very important because the label is basically legally binding upon the person using the pesticide. FIFRA makes it a violation of its rules to use a pesticide in a manner inconsistent with its labeling. And there are fairly significant penalties and even potentially criminal penalties if you don't follow those label directions. Now, the positive side is that if we do follow label directions, and especially if we're applying a pesticide on or near water and it's labeled for that use, we probably don't have to have an NPDES permit for that application. And we talk about NPDES in another video module in this series. But we don't necessarily have to apply for an environmental discharge permit for the application of that pesticide. And that can be a defense to liability if there's potential dangers or harms caused by that application, but that's not necessarily an affirmative defense that we can totally rely on. Now, for you to be a pesticide applicator, you have to have one of two things in mind. Number one, if you have a non-restricted pesticide, and that will be indicated on the pesticide's label, the general public can use those as long as they follow the label directions. But there's a large class of what we call restricted use pesticides. Those pesticides are a little bit more hazardous to handle and use, and restricted use pesticides can only be handled by one of three classes of applicators. Number one, a commercial applicator, somebody who applies the pesticide for other parties. A service technician. The service technician can apply the pesticides with the supervision of a commercial applicator, and then we have a private applicator. That's someone who's applying the pesticide on their own property for their own uses. Now, as we've mentioned in other videos in this series, unused pesticides can be considered a hazardous waste under both FIFRA and CERCLA, not to mention the RCRA Act as well. So whenever we have wastes that we need to handle in terms of wastes, one thing we can do is triple rinse those pesticide containers. And again, go to the PestEd website for more information about how you can properly triple rinse your containers before discarding them. Another very beneficial program that we've got is the OSU Unwanted Pesticide Disposal program. If you've got pesticides that you no longer need or that may have gone past their effective date, you can use the Unwanted Pesticide Disposal program to make sure that those pesticides go to the hands of a properly licensed hazardous waste disposal company and make sure that that absolves you of environmental liability for those disposals. So FIFRA is both very simple and very complex. Basically, all that we have to do under FIFRA as pesticide users is make sure that we follow label directions, bearing in mind that those label directions might indicate we need to be a commercial applicator, a service technician, or a private applicator. And then the other thing that we need to do that ties between FIFRA and RCRA is that we need to make sure that we have proper disposal of those unused or unwanted pesticides so that we don't unwittingly dispose of a hazardous substance in violation of RCRA. With that, if you need more information, just go to our website at okstate.edu /agecon, and you'll be able to find these and more references in our Environmental Regulatory Compliance Project section. Thanks for watching today.